Welcome back to another episode of Teammate Sportscast. It's Louisville week, Miami versus Louisville this Friday. It's going to be a good game. Liam Hickey with me. My name's Zach Cohen, and now Liam, this is the 18th overall meeting between the two. Go over a little bit of the history of this matchup.
So, Louisville and Miami will be competing for the Schnellenberger Trophy, named after the famous Miami and Louisville coach, Howard Schnellenberger. He has coached at both schools along with FAU and Oklahoma in his career, but he's most known for his time at both of these schools. Alabama, of course, or rather Miami, he was the founding father of the U. He literally constructed this program from the ground up, turned it into the national powerhouse back in the early 80s, late 70s. This guy is so instrumental to where the Miami football program is now, and it is honestly a terrific thing that we now have a trophy named in his honor. And as for Louisville, he also carried this program to great heights as well. He led the Cardinals to a 10-1 record and a Fiesta Bowl win over Alabama in 1990. So even after leaving Miami, he still had a very successful career. He had a little pro stint that didn't go as well, but regardless, had a great collegiate career. And so, yeah, this is the 18th overall meeting. Miami does hold the overall all-time series lead, 12-4-1, which is a good sign. And they actually have been in a great run of form against the Cardinals recently, winning 3 out of the last 4 since 2019. However, on the flip side, Louisville ended Miami's home record win streak back in 2023 on November 18th, winning 38-31. And since then, Miami has gone on another home win streak, but that unfortunately ended a long time streak for the Hurricanes there. And so looking at this, both teams are coming off the bye week, got a lot of rest. Hurricanes, of course, undefeated, number 2 in the nation. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, they're a frisky team. They're kind of lurking on the edge of that top 25 spot. They've had some AP voters rank them in that area, but overall they did not get the nod into that top 25. But still, they're 4-1. Only one ACC loss that came 2 weeks ago to Virginia in that really, really good overtime game. Besides that, though, they haven't played great competition, let's be honest. Games against Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, which was a close one, 28-14, in which they actually came back. Bowling Green, 40-17. And then beating Pitt away 34-27. That was before, of course, Pitt made the quarterback change from Eli Holstein to the freshman Mason Henschel. And then, of course, losing to Virginia 30-27 in a close three-point game that ended in overtime.
Yeah, that Pitt game will be tough at the end of the season, but it'll be fun to watch this game on Friday, see who's going to take home the boots, as they say, for this year. I remember last year seeing a photo of Xavier Restrepo holding up that trophy, and it's pretty happy to have that one. Now, before we go into what we can expect for the game on Friday, a little bit of history from last game. I mean, it was a shootout, 52-45 game. Miami won. Tyler Shaw, Louisville's quarterback at the time, 342 yards. Cam Ward had 319. They each had 4 touchdowns, and it was both a really potent offense from both sides, and not so much of a defensive game. It scored a lot of points, but Miami did come out away with that one and was able to win 52-45.
And this game was at Louisville, and there were some things that I think will remain the same for this week on Friday, and also some things that I think will be different. For one, I don't think this game is going to be as high scoring as, of course, 52-45. Miami's defense is so much better than last year, and I think Louisville will be held to probably, my guess will be under 20 points. I think Miami probably also won't put up 52 in a non-era Cam Ward offense, but still, this will be a great game, and I think a similarity is that both teams will still rely heavily on the passing game. Louisville, even though they have an awesome running back in Isaac Brown, only 9 carries in that game. They mainly leaned on Ja'Cory Brooks, who has since graduated, but he had 6 receptions for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then, of course, Miami in the receiving game as well had 2 receivers over 100 yards in Restrepo and Sam Brown Jr. So I expect that to kind of be a continuity heading into Friday night's contest. But now let's get into it. Let's get into this breakdown of Louisville versus Miami on Friday night, the pink out game. And I think we had to start with Louisville's offense because there are some really good things that I think the Hurricanes should be able to take advantage of in this game. So starting with the QB profile, who will this defensive line be lining up against under center? And that is Miller Moss, the transfer from University of Southern California, USC. I think he plays perfectly to Miami's strengths, and I'll tell you why. He is a traditional, prototypical pocket passer that does not have a lot of mobility. He's not like a Byron Brown or a Tommy Castellanos or even a C.J. Carr, who was even more multidimensional, even though he is a traditional pocket passer. C.J. Carr is probably even more able to scramble than Miller Moss is, and that is going to lead some great things for this Miami defensive line, in my opinion, because that means that they can get to him really easily. He's going to try to be very on schedule, won't make a lot of off schedule plays. He's going to stay in that pocket, and I think when the pressure collapses, he's not going to know where to run. And that could lead to a lot of sacks, a lot of pressures, and a lot of mistakes, which is something that he's made a lot of so far in the 2025 season. 7 touchdowns and a 67% completion rate, which is pretty good. But the problem is 4 interceptions, 3 of them being pick sixes, and 2 fumbles. So this guy is pretty careless with the ball when he is under pressure. He has a 34 PFF grade when he has runners coming at him, which is absolutely horrible. And so with Miami, of course, having one of the best defensive lines in the country, I think they could be a nightmare type of night for Miller Moss.
We saw last week 1,358 yards. That it does stand out a bit, but like you said earlier, look at the competition he's faced, Bowling Green, etc. Hasn't really stood out that much. And I think last week, Chandler Morris and Miller Moss are somewhat similar quarterbacks, so that's why you saw very competitive games. But when you have Akeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain on both sides of the defensive line, like he's gonna be rushed a line, have to throw under pressure. We're gonna have to see how well he could do with that.
Yeah, against Virginia, like you said, there's a play where Miller Moss was almost tackled to the ground on a 3rd down pass, and instead of taking the sack and punting it, he just blindly launched the ball in the air, and the Cavalier defensive back was able to run it back all the way for 6. And we actually saw the Hurricanes force that exact same type of play with Castellanos 2 weeks ago, where Ruben Bain brought the pressure. Castellanos just sent it downfield, almost like on a Hail Mary type throw. Deuce Robinson was in double coverage, and then Jacoby Thomas just easily picked that off like an apple off a tree. And so I think if that same kind of thing can be replicated in this game on Friday night, it's going to be a whirlwind of problems for this Louisville offense. But on the flip side, it is incumbent that the pressure does get to Miller Moss, because if it doesn't, they have some weapons. And Miller Moss has actually been very good when he doesn't have pressure on him. He has an 87 grade, which is actually one of the better ones in the country. So this guy, I mean, the talent is there. He comes from USC. He was consistently throwing over 300 yards last season. So he is a great pocket passer in what he does. But that's just something that the Canes can really play into their strength. So we'll see how it goes. They just need to bring that pressure.
I'm not sure who was credited with the fumble last week, but I remember earlier in the game, Miller Moss kind of handed it off to Isaac Brown. He fumbled the ball. There was a fumble there, a miscommunication, and that was taken back, I believe, to the house earlier in the game. So communication for Louisville is going to be important to get past this potent Miami defense, which you've seen be so much better than last year.
Yeah, and even better, another really good positive note for Miami is that Corey Heatherman is very familiar with Miller Moss. Being the defensive coordinator at Minnesota last year, he actually spurred the Golden Gophers to a 24-17 upset win versus the USC Trojans, with Moss, of course, at the helm. USC was ranked number 11 at the time, and his defense was able to notch 2 interceptions on the guy and only forced him to throw 1 touchdown and only 200 yards, which was a bad mark for him, considering he consistently throw for over 300 in the past games prior to that contest. And if you really look at it, after that game, Heatherman clearly had Moss's number because he kind of initiated his demise. After that, he lost 3 out of the next 4 with USC, was eventually benched for Jaden Mayava, and it just was not good. I mean, Moss was literally rolling before that, upset number 10 LSU in their season opener. Then after that, they dropped games to Maryland and Washington, in which they were favored. So I think it's safe to say Heatherman kind of right now has a title belt over Miller Moss, and it's up to Miller Moss to win it back. And I think that Heatherman's going to have another great day with this defensive line that has so many more weapons and talent than he did at Minnesota.
But you talk about weapons and talent, and for Louisville, Chris Bell stands out. The guy's 502 receiving yards, went off against Virginia, 170 yards, 12 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. The kid's big. I mean, he's 6'2". He could probably be a tight end if he wanted to. He has a pretty big frame, and we were talking about before the show, Liam, he kind of reminds me of Deuce Robinson from FSU.
Yeah, and I actually want to give you a blind resume real quick, all right? So just think about this. I have 3 wide receivers for you, all right? Wide receiver 1 has 35 catches, 502 yards, and 4 touchdowns, okay? Wide receiver 2, 21 receptions, 336 yards on the season, 3 touchdowns. Wide receiver 3, 25 receptions, 443 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So out of those 3, who are you taking?
I'll go. Let's go 3.
Okay. You want me to repeat for you?
Alright,
There's a
repeat
pretty
it.
big disparity.
I
Okay.
got
Yeah.
lost there.
All right. This probably isn't the best for a podcast, but
yeah.
So-
It's a good little game though.
yeah, wide receiver 1, 35 receptions, 502 yards, 4 touchdowns. Number 2 is 21 receptions, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns. Number 3 is 25 receptions, 443 yards, and 3 touchdowns again. So out of those 3,
And repeat the number 1 guy reception.
35 receptions,
All right,
502
we're
yards.
We're going 1.
Okay, so number 1 is Chris Bell. You want to know what number 2 and number 3 are?
Let's hear it.
So number 2 is Ryan Williams, and number 3 is Deuce Robinson. Big disparity there. I think that just shows how good Chris Bell is and how much he has been utilized in this Louisville offense. He actually may be the best receiver in the ACC. In our preview for FSU, we were saying, oh yeah, Deuce Robinson will probably be the best receiver Miami faces all season. That goes out the window now because Chris Bell, just looking at his stats alone, they are far superior to what Deuce Robinson has shown, who's basically been a glorified tight end for Florida State. Chris Bell is much more of a deep threat. He's second in the ACC in yards, only behind Bryant Wesco of Clemson, third in receptions, and first in average yards per game as well. And the next closest is Wesco with 89.5, and currently Bell has 100. So that's like a 10-yard separation distance right there. That's a large margin. So not only is he one of the most talented, but like I said, he's also one of the most utilized by Miller Moss. So this guy could be really dangerous. And also, don't shy away from Colin Lacey, who's their second guy, and their wide receiver too. Because I could definitely see Miami putting multiple guys. You got Xavier Lucas or O.J. Frederick that would probably line up against him on the perimeter. You got Colin Lacey as the wide receiver 2 guy, who's, by the way, been phenomenal in the special teams unit, been really good on punt returns, actually named a midseason All-American by CBS. So it could be one of those situations just like we saw against USF, where we were all putting our big guys against Keyshawn Singleton, and it was actually Chaz Nimrod that went for over 100 yards. By the way, the only receiver that Miami has had that's gone over 100 yards so far. So I think that could be a similar situation with Colin Lacey. So you just got to watch out for that. But I think, once again, that all is obsolete if Miami's D-line can get to this quarterback in Miller Moss. I think that will be really, really possible considering how porous and just downright horrific Miami's offensive line, or Louisville's offensive line has been. I think that's what we should talk about next, just how bad they've been.
Yeah, go ahead. Go right into it, Liam.
So they have allowed 13 sacks on the year, 5 against Virginia alone. So they are right now not in a good spot. Their heads are kind of hung, and they have a 57 pass blocking grade. That's 105th in the nation.
And do you have Miami's in comparison?
Oh, it's top 5. Top 5, yeah. No, and in terms of the run blocking, it's even worse. They have a 52 grade in the run blocking, 117th in the nation, have allowed 2.6 sacks per game. And it doesn't help when your head coach, Jeff Brom, is mentioning in the pregame press conferences that this Miami defensive front is the better than any SEC front that he's seen in 3 to 4 years. He literally talked to a Florida coach, and that's what that Florida coach was saying. So that does not spell good things for this Louisville offensive line that has been struggling against James Madison, Bowling Green, Eastern Kentucky, and now I got to go against the Miami Hurricanes. That's not a great side
Number
of
2 Miami Hurricanes, and matter of fact, but Cristobal did praise Louisville. Said they were a complete team. It's going to be one of the hardest teams they play, if not the hardest, this year. Just paraphrasing what he said there. So praise on both ends, and it's going to be a good matchup.
And then I think because how bad the offensive line is as well, it really has been limiting Louisville's potential in the run game, which going into the season was projected to be one of their biggest strengths, even over their wide receiver group, which has by far been tremendous. The running backs led by Isaac Brown and Duke Watson were touted to be one of the better running back duos in the nation, up there with Notre Dame and Texas. But so far it has been lackluster. They currently just have not been, from a statistical standpoint, that great. They have 115 rushing yards per game, which is 111th in the FBS. Against Pitt, Isaac Brown went 14 carries for 20 yards. That's only 1.4 yards per carry. And then against Virginia, he was a lot better, but they just did not have a lot of volume there because Brom just did not have a lot of faith in his run blockers. You could see why with the horrible stats that they have up the middle. And then, of course, he only had 13 carries because of that for 66 yards. So I think if Louisville wants a chance in this game, they kind of have to have something going in the run game, which has not been working for them all season.
And this is where it helps to have a mobile quarterback who can be a third running back per se and scramble for yards, Carson Beck isn't the fastest guy, but he's able to get out of the pocket, and that's thanks to that offensive line is parting the sea, allowing him to run. If you have a quarterback that can run, it's really important in this modern day age of football.
Exactly. And you look at Miami's running backs too, and Mark Fletcher and Marty Brown. They're probably on that same level as Isaac Brown and Duke Watson. It's just that the offensive line is so much better. Fletcher and Marty Brown are finding the opening pockets so much more often, and it's allowing them to explode for big gains. But then you look at Brown and Watson, it's just the opportunities there, the A gaps and the B gaps that are split open, that's just not existent. And it's leading to some low yardage plays that have not been going anywhere. It's unfortunate, too, because Isaac Brown had a 43-yard scamper last year, had 1 touchdown, and I don't know if that will happen again this year. And I'm hoping that they can still be opting for a run-first attack because I know that Miami's defensive line will probably stop that. That's what I'm hoping that Louisville goes for. But in my heart, I know that they will probably be going for a pass-heavy offense like they always have been all season. And it's going to be up to the secondary with guys like Xavier Lucas, O.J. Frederick on the perimeter, and then you got Jacoby Thomas and Keontae Scott, Bryce Fitzgerald, the ball hawker. Yeah. It's going to be up to those guys who will face a big test once again to really get the job done.
Yeah, it's really a gauntlet of games for Miami coming down the stretch, and their defense is going to play a big role for them throughout this 7-game ACC stretch.
Exactly. And speaking of defense, let's now get over onto the defensive side of the ball for Louisville. And this is actually a big strength for them. We talk about how the offense has some weaknesses that Miami can exploit, but now looking on the defensive side of the ball, both the run and passing defenses have been commendable. And overall, really solid on the defensive end for the Cardinals. In the pass defense, they have no glaring holes. They actually rank number 1 in the nation in expected points added for passes on defense with a negative .4. And looking at the ACC stats, this would surprise you, but they actually have the number 1 passing defense over Miami. They lead the conference in least amount of completions, worst completion percentage against opposing quarterbacks, 54%, least amount of reception yards, and of course, least amount of average reception yards per game as well, limiting opponents to only 150 yards per game, which is something that I think is going to change after this game because I think the talent that Malachi Tony, and of course CJ Daniels have, along with getting JoJo Trader hopefully back, who knows at this point. But then you also have Josh Moore. I think he might see a lot more looks now. Tony Johnson, if JoJo Trader doesn't actually play. Keelan Marion. The fact that the strength of schedule just has not been as good for Louisville, I think it's been playing a big part in that. So I think things will open up for the Louisville secondary once they face off against Miami.
Miami's wide receiver room is deep. It depends how Cristobal uses these guys. You saw last game against FSU, it was really the Malachi Tony and CJ Daniels show. But you saw what Josh Moore did against USF. Keelan Marion can run those jet sweeps, end-around routes. He's a quick and elusive player. But you mentioned the Louisville defense, Liam, and TJ Quinn's the guy that stands out. He really popped the ball out of one of the Virginia's players and forced it for a fumble. And you couldn't even see where the ball was. It was really great work from TJ Quinn last game against Virginia.
TJ Quinn has been excellent. He has 2 interceptions, which is tied for a team high, along with the other linebacker on Louisville's team, Antonio Watts. Both of these guys have been phenomenal. And then you look at more of the defensive backfield. Just like Miami, actually, this has been a pleasant surprise because this was viewed as a kind of ambiguous spot for this team. Not a lot of certainty, a lot of fears that, hey, this group might not live up to what they were last year. But guys like Jabari Mack and Tayon Holloway have led the secondary to really great heights. And because of that, they've been excelling. And they've struggled in man coverage at times, but they have been really, really solid in zone coverage. So if that continues, this will be hard for Malachi Tony and CJ Daniels, but I think in the end they will prevail. And then going on to the rushing defense, it isn't much worse. They ranked 5th best in the ACC. Miami, by reference, has the 2nd best, but they are holding runners to 3.3 yards per carry and 112 yards per game only. And in the last 2 games, this has gotten even better. An ACC best 84 yards per game only against Pitt and Virginia. So it may be a tough time for Mark Fletcher and Marty Brown and maybe Jordan Lyle. Once again, don't really know much in that situation. But ranking 22nd nationally in sacks per game at 2.8, this defensive line is a big proponent of how good they are in the rushing defense, led by guys like Clev Lubin and Renee Conga. This is a fearsome and formidable defensive line that will be the best matchup we've seen so far in terms of the trench battle there between Miami's offensive line and Louisville's defensive line. This will be something to watch out for.
And last game against FSU, Fletcher, Lyle who did play, and Marty Brown, they were stopped really against the FSU defense. So we'll see if Shannon Dawson goes to more of a pass-heavy offense, and like you see these stats from CJ, like I mentioned, like CJ Daniels last game and Malachi Tony, they were through the roof. It would be nice to get Mark Fletcher Jr. going because we saw against Florida all those games previously what he can do. He's an impact player, and we'll see what's gonna happen there.
Just for the stats part of it, this defensive line that Louisville has is graded third best in the country. Miami has the second best in the country, and Louisville has the second highest pressure rate in the nation as well. Meanwhile, if you look over on the flip side, Miami has the fourth best graded O-line in the country. The only unit, by the way, that is top 15 in both run blocking and pass protection. So it'll be two colliding forces in this game between the offensive line led by CeCe Mauinoa and Inez Cooper and Markel Bell and all these dogs, James Brockermeyer, going against Clev Lubin, AJ Green, Renee Conga, who has been a shining star for this team as well. It's just going to be box office to see. I recommend that if you're watching this game, although our innate instinct is to go and watch wherever the ball's moving, watch this trench battle there in between the hedges, because these guys are going to be crashing into each other, and it is going to be one of the better matchups you'll see all season. Like, of any matchup, like in the college football landscape, this is going to be intense, and it's going to be great to watch.
Friday night game, primetime game. Can't spell it out any better.
Miami's coming off another week of rest after the bye week, and they're going to be playing at home finally after playing in Doak Campbell 2 weeks ago. So this will be a familiar primetime atmosphere spot for them. They played a lot of games so far at night, and that will continue after Louisville as well. We now know that they're playing against Stanford at the 7 p.m. time slot, as well at Hard Rock, the Asylum. So that could be another positive for Miami, because this is a very familiar spot for them. They're very used to playing with the lights dimmed. And let's hope a big talking point going into this week, like as it always has been for the past few weeks now. It sounds like a broken record, but Jordan Lyle and JoJo Trader, the two guys that were supposed to be playing in battle way back since Florida, hopefully now after the second bye week they're healthy. And we saw Jordan Lyle, he's slowly starting to ramp up his snap share. He's had 7 carries for 18 yards. Not a great stat line, but at least it's something against Florida State. JoJo Trader still didn't really see much work. So I think JoJo Trader may be more of a doubt than Jordan Lyle is, but with the addition of Lyle, it's going to be a way more potent running group for Miami going into this game against Louisville.
And yeah, you mentioned the atmosphere. It's Hard Rock Stadium, but early in the season it was much warmer. You get high 80s. Right now it's 82. It's going to get down to 73. It's pretty much what it's probably going to be on Friday too. This is Wednesday now. We're recording this. It's not as hot outside, not as muggy. It's a much more playable, enjoyable atmosphere to play in for the players, and maybe a little less oxygen needed for those big guys up front.
And if you want to stay on the topic of the weather, this may seem pretty futile, but talking about the weather forecast, Carson Beck, we saw how good he was in Tallahassee when there wasn't rain, right? Against USF, against Florida, the ball was coming out slippery, threw an interception against the Gators, but I actually went ahead and looked at the rain forecast, and it's all clear. It looks like a 30% chance of precipitation through the day, but then past 12 p.m., it looks like it's a 0% chance, which is great for Carson Beck in terms of holding on to the ball and making those throws down the field, which, by the way, a new status just came out. He is now the fastest quarterback in terms of time to throw in the entire Power 4 division, with an average of 2.35 seconds before he releases that ball, which is great because that means he knows where his wide receivers are. It means the chemistry is there. And it also takes a bunch of pressure off the shoulders of the offensive linemen. And what was really cool is that it actually came out. This has been a developing story. Malachi Tony, of course, played quarterback at American Heritage in his high school years. And Carson Beck actually commented on this over the past week, saying he has spoken with Malachi Tony. And Tony's experience at QB has actually helped their partnership, because Tony knows about the progressions that Carson Beck is going through. He knows where he wants to put the ball, and it has helped Tony to get open and be in the spots where Carson Beck wants him to be. And that, in turn, has helped them generate these big plays on the big stage like we've seen. So Tony, for being a true freshman, his knowledge of the game from multiple positions, not just from a wide receiver perspective, but from a quarterback perspective, has helped the team tenfold. And that is something that I think should easily earn him All-American honors as a true freshman.
Now, Liam, that sounds like a cheat code if you think about it. Malachi Tony's knowledgeable from probably two of the most important positions in football. Super, super important.
This guy's like the Shohei Ohtani of football. It's insane.
And he just turned 18.
Just turned 18. And I'm 18 now, and I'm talking about him in a podcast. It's pretty demeaning. So, but Miami has to kill this game off, right? This is something that has been a recurring issue. We talked about it about the fourth quarter against Florida State. It was there in the third quarter against Florida. This is something that needs to be done because if you look at it, Louisville has faced deficits this season, and they've made comebacks against James Madison, against Pittsburgh, and even slightly against Virginia, even though they ended up losing. They brought it to overtime. So Miami has to go up a couple scores, not just one. They're favored heavily in this game, 13.5-point favorites, which I think that's a big spread. I'm not going to take it because I trust my Hurricanes, and they've actually are 5-0 against the spread the entire season. But still, that is a lot of points. So they need to go up multiple scores, maybe 10 or so, to really kill this game off. Because Louisville, they could be frisky, and they could, with their offense. And Miller Moss, he gets hot potentially. You know how it is. He has a strong arm. And the arm gets hot. He gets the hot hand. You never know what could happen.
The only time Miami trailed this season, I believe, was against FSU when they kicked that field goal to open up the scoring. But after that, Miami got rolling, picked up a 28-3 lead. Obviously, you look at that fourth quarter, you saw what happened, and that's why it's pivotal to have a big lead but also not give up late. You still got to play defense. You still got to hold them to whatever the spread is or whatever. And yeah.
And if I could play devil's advocate here and actually take the side of Mario Cristobal, who has kind of been chastised a little bit because of his management of the fourth quarter there could be just the possibility that, hey, Cristobal knew what he was doing. Because if you look at it, what's really important here? It's the record. They're 5-0, and even though it's been close at times, you could argue that Miami has had full control under every single situation so far. And that's a result of Miami trying to shorten the game, leave it to the run, which was getting completely stopped against Florida State, but yet it was running clock. They were milking that time, and they were keeping the time of possession on their side. And that was something that I think it's possible. Cristobal just has PTSD from that Syracuse game last year where they were up by so much, but yet they decided not to go with their run game and guys like David Martinez and then the backup Mark Fletcher at that time. They kept deciding to throw it. It led to quick times of possessions that Syracuse was able to turn into points on the other end. Syracuse, of course, ended up coming back at the Carrier Dome, led to Miami falling short, going to the Pop-Tarts Bowl instead of the ACC Championship. And so now, even though people are lambasting head coach Cristobal for that decision, maybe it's working. Maybe it's just one of the situations where, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're 5-0, we're undefeated with this strategy, so let's keep it that way. It may not look pretty, but this run-first style of attack is working, so let's just keep it on the ground, pound it out even if it's not working. And if you go down and you only get 1-yard plays on third and fourth downs, hey, you at least ate up 2 or 3 minutes of clock that the other team now doesn't have to go down the field and march and score points. So that's my take. Maybe that's what Cristobal's thinking, but still, as a Miami fan, we want points, we want swagger, we want that substance, and hopefully we get more of that against Louisville.
I see your vision there, Liam. Anything else before we go into the predictions?
I think it's just going to be more contingent on this Miami D-line than it is going to be Miami's offense in terms of getting it done, moving the needle, getting pressures on Miller Moss. I think if they can do that, that will ensure a win more so than Carson Beck going off because of the mismatch in terms of Louisville's offensive line versus Miami's defensive unit. That will be the biggest matchup that Miami can exploit because if you look at the other side, they're almost even in terms of these defensive lines, yet Miami's offensive line is miles better. It's like Miami's offensive line is miles better than, of course, Louisville's offensive line. So it's like Louisville is running into a wall on that side where Miami is just plowing straight through on that other side. So that's what I think, in my opinion. That's my 2 cents. What about you?
Yeah, in terms of what's going to come down to, it's I pretty much agree with what you said. Running the football is going to be important. Getting those first downs, eliminating the penalties. Saw that late last game, really a big deal. And that fourth quarter was pretty much an hour long, which is I've never seen a longer fourth quarter than that. And no, I just want to see Carson Beck play some good. This is a fun team to watch, man, and just see the whole team play some good, hard-nosed, solid football. Like I've been preaching this every episode we've been doing. It's consistency is key to winning these games.
And with that being said, I'm going to jump into the predictions here, and I'm going to give it a win to the Hurricanes to go 6-0 on the season. And I'm going to say they're going to win by a final score of 27-14. And it's going to be a horrible beat if you're betting on Miami because they're going to get edged by just that half point there. But I'm going to say Miami takes us home by 2 scores. It's going to be great defensive play. And I think Carson Beck and this offense is going to do wonders on this Louisville defense and put up that same region of points that they have been putting on teams all season in 27.
I'm going to go 35-23. We've seen this Louisville offense be able to score the football, be able to score all year. Like, obviously, the opponents have not been to highest of caliber of Miami, but I think they'll still be able to put some points on the board. But nonetheless, Miami is going to take this game. And with that, another episode of TMH Sportscast is done. Miami versus Louisville this Friday, 7 p.m. We'll be back next week. Liam Hickey, I'm Zach Cohen, Max Diaz in the corner being our TD. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week.